Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, July 1st. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The San Diego Convention Center has played a huge role in helping house thousands of unaccompanied migrant children for the past 3 months. But it is now time to close the shelter as the facility prepares to reopen for summer events. KPBS reporter Alexandra Rangel has the latest on efforts to help reunify children with their sponsors.
Mayor Todd Gloria confirming in a tweet Wednesday night that the last of the children staying at the convention center had left the city. We spoke to the mayor Thursday. He expressed his gratitude to those involved in the effort.
I think every San Diegan could be proud of what happened in that convention center, the way that all these organizations, public, private, nonprofit, all working together to just protect these kids. That's what we should do. It should be a no-brainer. And San Diego absolutely stepped up.
Since the opening of the shelter at the convention center in late March, the Department of Health and Human Services says more than 2,400 unaccompanied children have been reunified with their sponsors. A recent report by the Department of Homeland Security says apprehensions of unaccompanied children for the month of June are down by 21%. From their peak of 19,000 in March. As workers at the shelter begin to break down operations at the convention center, the CEO of the Metropolitan Area Advisory Committee, Arnulfo Manriquez, says the feeling is bittersweet. About 150 staff members with MAC worked with the children at the convention center. They were one of many organizations that provided services at the shelter. From making sure the children were well cared for to creating engaging activities and educating them.
Education plays a big part of it as well. And also understanding, they go through a process of understanding what their situation is and what their rights are. Manriquez
says meaningful impacts were made between staff and the children.
Just like when you get an attachment to a teacher in your class and you love your teacher, and then, 20 years later, you still remember the impacts of that teacher had.
I believe we'll continue to have opportunities to step up and serve, and I believe that we will. It may not be at the convention center. It may be more modest efforts.
Gloria says San Diego will continue to be a welcoming city for all. Alexandra Rangel, KPBS News.
The parents of nearly 400 migrant children separated at the border still have not been found. That is according to a filing from the Justice Department and the American Civil Liberties Union. It's part of an ongoing effort to identify and reunite families since the zero-tolerance immigration policy was created 3 years ago. Since May, the parents of about 24 migrant children have been found. The recall election threatening to oust Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom is scheduled for September 14th. Today, the state's lieutenant governor announced the date after elections officials certified that enough valid petition signatures had been turned in to qualify for the ballot. California's Department of Finance also finalized the cost of holding the recall at $276 million. We have more tonight on that breaking news story we brought you last night involving the sanctions handed down against the Coronado High School basketball team involved in that tortilla tossing incident. Here's KPBS reporter Melissa May.
The California Interscholastic Federation issued a statement about their investigation of the incident that occurred after the Southern California Boys Basketball Division 4A Regional Championship back on June 19th. The CIF said, quote, "In this instance, there is no doubt the act of throwing tortillas at a predominantly Latino team is unacceptable and warrants sanctions." 7 sanctions were levied against Coronado High School. The first being the 2021 Southern California Boys Basketball Division 4A Regional Championship is vacated. Also, the school is on probation through the 2023-2024 season. Coronado Unified School District Superintendent Carl Mueller gave a statement that said they are currently reviewing the decision and will evaluate a possible appeal. Mueller also said they have retained an outside investigator who will guide any additional corrective actions. The superintendent concluded by saying, "Whatever actions we take to address this matter, this incident and the CIF decision have served as clear reminders of the importance of sportsmanship and respectful conduct towards one another." Ann Staferi, the Escondido Union High School District Superintendent, issued the following statement. "We continue to focus on the needs of our students as they heal from this experience. As always, as a district, we remain committed to our support for equity, safety, and the well-being of all students." Melissa May, KPBS News.
Not guilty. Those were the pleas from lawyers involved in the Trump Organization. Longtime finance chief Alan Weisselberg arrived to court in Manhattan in handcuffs. It's the first criminal case arising from a 2-year investigation into tax crime charges of the former president's company. The case involves fringe benefits given to employees, like the use of apartments, cars, and school tuition. Trump himself was not charged, but legal experts say that could change depending on the case. Search and rescue work at the site of the collapsed condo building in South Florida has stopped over safety concerns. 18 people are dead and 145 people are still unaccounted for. Nadia Romero is in Surfside, where President Biden is meeting with victims' families.
President Joe Biden offering his gratitude to the first responders and rescue teams in Surfside, Florida, recognizing the painstakingly difficult challenges ahead.
These folks are always showing up, no matter what. They're risking their lives.
The president's visit coming 1 week after the partial collapse of the Champlain Towers South condominium building.
It's bad enough to lose somebody. But the hard part, the really hard part, is to not know whether they're surviving or not.
The president also offering his support to the families, meeting with them in private.
They know that the chances are, as each day goes by, diminish slightly. But at a minimum, they want to recover the bodies.
His visit comes as officials were forced to halt their recovery efforts over fears that the rest of the tower could fall.
A large column hanging from the structure that could fall and cause damage to the support columns in the subterranean garage area.
Concerns about the structural integrity of the building, as well as questions about potential warning signs in the years and months leading up to the tragedy, will be front and center for investigators. As experts say, it could take months or even years to get to the bottom of what happened. For now, the focus is on those anxiously waiting for more clarity on their loved ones, and for those survivors who say they know just how lucky they truly are.
And I'm okay because I don't break a leg, I don't make nothing. Terrified, of course, crying, of course, and I'm still crying for all the people.
In Surfside, Florida, Nadia Romero, KPBS News.
New laws are now in effect across California as the new fiscal year begins. They include a ban on buying more than one semi-automatic centerfire rifle in a 30-day period, the creation of an ombudsman to advocate for, and field complaints from student loan borrowers faced with predatory practices. The state's 3 prisons for juveniles will stop accepting admissions and will close in 2023. And 2 laws designed to help homeowners who lose property in wildfires during states of emergency. State prisoners play a crucial role in battling California's wildfires. But as iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano reports, these inmates are still under a strict COVID-19 rule that's affecting morale at their living quarters.
When the COVID-19 pandemic began, the State Corrections Department banned in-person visitations. Now, 16 months later, the families of inmate firefighters are still waiting to see their loved ones face to face.
He hasn't had a hug. He hasn't had physical touch for that long. And I would die. Do you know what I mean? When my little guy comes up and gives me love, it's I'm so glad that I have that physical connection.
Jillian Case's husband lives at a fire camp outside Redding. She hasn't visited him in almost a year and a half. Neither have any of their 6 children. The firefighting program is grueling work for state prisoners. They spend days or weeks at a time on the front lines of wildfires, extinguishing flames and chopping down trees in bright orange jumpsuits for a few dollars a day. One of the perks of the job? Having spouses and children visit the campgrounds during downtime for picnics and barbecues. Case and her husband are allowed to have weekly video visits, but spotty reception can cause the calls to drop and the screen to freeze.
For me personally, I have to hire a babysitter. I have to drive 15 minutes from my house. I have to sit in my car and go to the local college to use good enough data to get cell reception to do the video visit. So it's a super inconvenience for me. And it's just like impersonal. You know what I mean?
California's higher security facilities, like Donovan Prison in San Diego, reopened to visitors months ago in April. The Corrections Department would not explain what's taking so long at the fire camps, but said they're in the final stages of developing a plan to resume in-person visits. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource investigative reporter Jill Castellano.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. The pandemic revealed gaps in the critical care system. Some communities had more and easier access to resources, while others did not. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says advocates who have long been calling for increased funding for public health departments say now is the time to seize on an influx of pandemic funding because it won't be there forever.
The topic of the underfunding of public health jurisdictions is decades old.
San Diego County Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten says substantial long-term funding has eluded local public health departments, and with the spotlight on the pandemic, now is the time to change that.
Oh, absolutely. Now is the opportunity.
The public health department hasn't seen a decrease in funding like some others have, but that's due in large part to a team of grant writers that get state and federal dollars. Health and Human Services Agency Director Nick Mascione says funding from the state and federal government is typically reactive.
When there's a crisis, then funding will flow versus the using our adage in public health prevention, investing the dollars and building the infrastructure. I don't think there's any community across this country that would say they have the adequacy of their public health infrastructure.
At the height of the pandemic, the public health department more than doubled their budget and nearly doubled staffing.
That was just COVID-19. What's on our plate for public health? Everything. Homeless. Getting to zero for HIV and TB and hepatitis. I mean, it's all those things, right? It's malnutrition. It's all those things. And so have we doubled ourselves for all those things? No. So to answer your question, do we need far more resources in public health? Absolutely yes.
Mascione says the pandemic could be the eye-opener for state and federal officials, similar to how the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center prompted a major shift.
Think about how security and how the airports changed and just the whole nature of the awareness. The pandemic and COVID-19 has done and will do the same for us in this country. And we hope it's for the good.
He says the pandemic revealed gaps in the way people have access to resources.
We're ending a pandemic with COVID-19, but there's another pandemic we've been dealing with, and that's the health inequities. And it is a pandemic, because when you look at, and COVID-19 just put the light on it to see how different parts of our county, different parts of our state, different parts of our nation were living, and some of them were not living well. And it's no surprise when you have overcrowding or people that were not in any type of shelter. It was no surprise when people did not have food security or a job, and therefore, if they were sick, had to go to work or felt forced to go to work because they had no ability to take care of their family. And those were enablers, unfortunately, of viral spread.
The county made early investments in programs to build trust with communities that they weren't connecting with. They hired promotores, also called community health workers, to get the word out in the Latino communities.
We contract, we put our money where our mouth is, and provided those contracts so that communities would have individuals that looked like them going out and conducting that outreach.
They were a game changer. They became extenders of our nurses.
The state later provided one-time grants for similar outreach programs, but officials want to keep them going long-term, especially if another crisis happens. In general, Mascione says root issues need to be addressed, not just being reactive to situations like the mental health crisis and rising numbers of encampments on San Diego streets.
It's those social determinants. So it's housing. It's helping people with jobs. It is, in fact, that leadership, which is that training of bringing folks forward, right? So those are things that you don't think about in the realm of public health, but if you were to address that, you would really improve the public's health.
Wooten says the public health department needs to maintain a trained workforce and have the right infrastructure to be completely effective and nimble.
So for us in San Diego, it's our registry, our immunization registry, or our surveillance system, and our laboratory systems. So all of those are IT systems that we are looking to improve upon. So that's not a small dollar amount, that's a large dollar ticket.
The pandemic is winding down, but not the public health department. Officials are reallocating resources to address mental health challenges and people living on the streets.
There's other needs that were put on pause, and then other things that are beginning to rise, unfortunately. And so we're, again, where public health goes into action is where the need is immediately shifting those resources there.
Officials from the governor's office say they recognize investments in core public health functions have stayed the same or decreased over the last decade, and they're currently conducting a review to assess the state's public health response. Any gaps would be addressed in the 2022 budget. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, Decision Day. The Supreme Court upholds voting restrictions, highlighting the conservative majority. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
While COVID cases and deaths decreased in America, the death toll in India increased. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne shows us how a retailer in Oceanside is sending help to India.
Kyle Tortora is the owner of Lotus Sculptures in Oceanside, a Buddhist and Hindu sculpture retail and wholesale store.
Each one is handmade, one of a kind. Artists spend 5 months on this one statue, and their love and their passion and their kind of belief system in Hinduism comes out in it.
Tortora said he was inspired to start the shop after traveling through Southeast Asia and India.
This statue of Shiva Nataraja right here, this is what influenced me to start Lotus Sculpture in the first place. I'm going to find out where these are made, I'm going to buy them, and I'm going to ship them back home and build a website.
For 21 years, Kyle Tortora has been bringing the beauty of Buddhist and Hindu sculptures to his clients all over the world. When he realized that there was suffering and needs in some of the Indian villages, he had to do something about it.
When you travel in India, you see how these people live day to day. So what they earn in the morning, they use it at night to feed their family. So when you initiate a full lockdown on a country, these people who are farmers, they can't go out and farm their land. They can't feed their family.
Tortora spoke to one of his artisans, Balan, about the impact COVID was leaving on the people of India. Balan became Tortora's eyes, and this is what he saw.
One family had a kid with cerebral palsy, and another family had two boys with Down syndrome. And he went into their kitchen, and basically they had water in their kitchen. That right there said, this is a problem. People are hungry. They can't feed themselves.
Balan and Tortora got to work. Balan started a list of people in need in small villages. Tortora began raising money. Together, they planned on distributing 25-kilogram sacks of rice to families.
They're the poorest of the poor, the people who were really hungry and needed it.
Not knowing what to expect, Tortora asked his customers for donations.
Within the first hour, we raised $8,000. So I was completely blown away at the generosity of my customers. And India, I think, was on a lot of people's mind, and they wanted to help, but they didn't know how. And so I gave them an avenue to do that.
He raised $57,000. The donations paid for more than 4,000 sacks of rice that Balan distributed throughout 63 villages. We were able to FaceTime Balan as the sun was coming up in India. He told us about his experience distributing the rice.
One woman came with her daughter. She cries. She couldn't eat. She didn't eat for 2-3 days. When I gave her one bag of rice, it's difficult. She says, I feel I may die, but now it's okay.
Balan said there is still a lockdown in Mumbai where they are dealing with the COVID Delta variant. Tortora said this project brought more needs in India to light, and he plans on doing more.
We're going to target people, individuals, families, and do one good thing a month. I think that's our goal.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Come play outside. That was the message from local leaders as part of Mayor Todd Gloria's Summer for All of Us initiative. The goal to get kids and their families outside for fun and recreation, especially those in historically underserved neighborhoods.
The San Diego Parks Foundation has one message, a very simple message for all San Diegans, and that is get outside. Get outside, breathe, fill your lungs with fresh oxygen. Enjoy our parks, enjoy our beaches, go for a hike.
The program should serve about 15,000 kids in the 21 rec centers in South and Central neighborhoods. Activities include adventure camps, aquatics, even teen and movie nights.
Next couple of days, we actually are going to be drying out a little bit. We've had some spotty showers and thunderstorms around some of our eastern areas. That's going to become a bit more limited, but we still keep our morning marine layer. Emphasis on morning marine layer. It doesn't stick around very long. And the temperatures, they will be rising as we head into the weekend. So tonight, 67 for the low and still a few clouds developing out there. Elsewhere around the region, we do have those numbers hanging out in the 60s or even in Borrego Springs, the upper 70s. Escondido 59 for your low with, again, influence of the marine layer. Here's how it maps out. Overnight, you can see those clouds mostly offshore, but they start to work their way onshore. Also, there will be some moisture, monsoonal moisture, trying to create some high air clouds off towards our east. That's not going to be a lot of impact for our area locally. So tomorrow, what do we find? Well, scattered showers and thunderstorms well to the east across portions of Arizona, maybe working into Nevada, but mostly the Four Corners. Around our area, we are looking at mostly just a dry time as the heat's going to start to build a little bit. So clouds give way to sunshine, and it's 73 for the high heading into tomorrow, 73 in Oceanside too, and 76 in Mount Laguna. Borrego Springs coming in at 105 degrees. Your Saturday forecast trending a bit warmer as we limit more of that monsoonal moisture off to our east. So there will be some more impacts, and that's why our numbers do head up into Saturday and Sunday. Temperatures in the mid 70s there pretty solidly for the coast as we keep, again, some of those morning clouds giving way to afternoon sunshine. Inland locations climbing to the mid 80s for Sunday too. We have partly sunny skies out there, still a warm time. Really no sign of rain as we'd expect it this time of year. Mountain locations pretty dry for us, and mid 70s for Saturday. So again, pretty warm for the start of our weekend. And then once we get into the desert locations, we cruise our way into the 110 range for Sunday and Monday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night stays these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. That is the unofficial motto of the United States Postal Service. In one San Diego neighborhood, one of those couriers has now finished the last of his appointed rounds. KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us how neighbors sent him off in style.
On the streets of the Villa Barbados neighborhood in Tierra Santa Wednesday, something extra. There, among the neatly manicured lawns, the trees and shrubs, were these little signs, some with balloons floating above, all with one thing in common, a name, John.
We're friends. He's been a friend in this neighborhood for the last 29 years.
I'm 73 now, and I was only in my 40s when he started in my block. So I watched him age, and he's definitely watched me age.
He's been to weddings, funerals, graduations, parties, birthdays.
This is the guy they're talking about, John Piontek. And as you've probably figured out by now, he's delivered the mail here since 1992. 29 years of steadfast service.
And I thought, can't just let him go. Have to do something for him. He's just too special.
So Janet Martin got on the Tierra Santa Nextdoor app. Within an hour, 50 people had gotten back to her. Then a committee formed. A retirement celebration was planned. Late Wednesday afternoon, people began arriving at the Tierra Santa Elementary School parking lot. They brought food and gifts. They signed giant pictures of the honored guest. One family showed their appreciation right on their car. 8-year-old Tally and her 10-year-old sister Grace capturing the mood of the moment.
Sad. We're gonna miss him.
When the man of the hour had checked his mail truck in for the last time, he headed straight back to Tierra Santa, to the neighbors that love him. Naturally, there were lots of happy pictures and hugs.
The nicest mailman I ever knew.
Congratulations.
A bit of family history to share.
My grandfather retired from the Postal Service back in Buffalo, New York.
Now, as the cake suggests, John is going to be spending plenty of time on the links, but not before some final thoughts.
Is there anything, like if you were to make a group announcement to these folks, that you would tell them? What would you say?
I just tell them, you know, how much I love them, you know. They're my family. They're my friends. And hold them deep in my heart. It's great.
It's safe to say the feeling is, and always will be, completely mutual. John Carroll, KPBS News.
What a sweet story. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.